Welcome everybody to the Lace Up Podcast, episode 4. We got my man B. Luke, also known as Bobby Lukas, my Cambridge homie. Very excited to interview him. Bobby is someone that got me, and then in turn Devin, into being motivated, inspired by maybe putting something out there, and just his I'm gonna let him speak on it, but his message is loud and clear, and the little guy, the voice for the little guy is something that he's really proud of, and it comes through in his work and whatnot. With that, I'm gonna turn it over to my co-host.
What's up, guys? Devin here. Let's go, Bobby. Happy to have you, bro.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Thank you for coming.
For sure.
Yeah, man. I want to say, you inspired me and Joe to do this stuff, man. And the man, the myth, the legend, Bobby Lukas. Let's go.
I'm sorry. I wanted to say, over 10,000 subscriptions on YouTube.
10K.
This kid started from, as Devin would say, from the mud, but the persistence, the perseverance is something that it's attractive, and to see and to know his story, a little of his background, which he's going to share tonight. Mm-hmm. It says everything to me. It's something that I need to hear when I don't believe in me. Here's this kid from across the bridge in Cambridge, and as you see, you got these rocking the Harvard gear. My boy's wicked smart. Like they say in Goodwill Hunting, but that should be Goodwill Stunting. We're the real deal over here, real gangster recovery, and Bobby's gonna share his experience tonight. And you guys, hopefully you look forward to it. You're gonna not want to miss out. So, Deb, you got this, bro?
Yeah, let's get it. So, Bobby, you're obviously from Cambridge. Want to just give us give the people a little background of what it was like growing up in Cambridge and
growing up in Cambridge was it was like, to me, especially East Cambridge, it was like the best place in the world. You know what I mean? I don't know if everybody probably feels like that where they grew up, but there was I don't know, it was nothing like it for me. It's a very diverse city. You know what I mean? So I was exposed to a lot of cultures and a lot of different type of people, different races, different languages, immigrants, people who've been here for a while, and getting to experience that at a young age was pretty cool. Like, we didn't see color. It wasn't until more getting later into high school where things started to divide a little bit more racially. But other than that, man, it was a great experience, man. It was a great experience.
I was thinking about the diversity.
The education, the diversity. It's pretty good. It's definitely a city where if you want to do the right thing, there's opportunities to do it, but there's also opportunities to get caught down, the wrong path.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I growing up, it's like, you're so sheltered, or so like, you're in your neighborhood, especially, in Boston. That's like, you get in where you fit in and whatnot, and, to think Cambridge is connected to Charlestown, and if you asked me growing up, like, what I knew about Cambridge, I knew it had the Galleria there, what I'm saying? Yeah. That's about as far as we'd venture, maybe. And, maybe hit Harvard Square or something. And, but then, we knew that you guys had the colleges, Harvard, you got, MIT's over there also.
Yep.
So that right there was like almost a fish out of water, or like a different world, but it was right across the way. And little did I know that there was like, there was people just like us, right? It wasn't just college students. It wasn't just like, you got Beacon Hill over that way and, over towards there and whatnot. And it wasn't ritzy. It wasn't glamorous. Like, there was also a poor section, there was people that, just like us, just across the way, so it's, to meet you, I think that was, it's pretty cool,
100%. And I was going to say too, like, for me, I'm a little bit younger than you guys. And like, I guess I was introduced to Cambridge, probably.
You saying we're old, bro? You saying we're old?
No, man. I ain't trying to throw no shots.
Yo, cut that shit.
Yo, cut that out. No, but it's obviously it's changed a lot. Just like any city has, man, with gentrification and this and that. And I didn't really realize, but Cambridge got some tough spots too, man. Like, I met some dude that was he grew up in the port, and then went over to the coast, and I know you said you're from East Cambridge, right?
Yeah,
so yeah,
absolutely.
and I spent a little time down at Central Square. You know, I think when I was coming over to meet you, I was like, Joe was like, Central Square loves you. I was like, I love Central Square. Like, oh, never loved me back.
Yeah, mental square. We would call it.
Mental square.
Yeah, right.
Find all that out there.
So yeah, man. You know, you talked about the diversity. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Cambridge Rindge and Latin, so
Okay.
pretty much I think that's the only public high school. We had North Cambridge Catholic, which I think is now in Dorchester, and then a few of my friends went to Matignon, which was also
Okay.
So it's like we go. It was almost like going from county to state because you have all these elementary schools, and then everybody from all of there, we go to the same high school, and I mean that high school has produced many people. I mean Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Patrick Ewing, Mindy Kaling. She's from The Office, the Indian chick. She's from Cambridge. I don't know if she went to Rindge, but she's from Cambridge.
Yeah.
Ramil Robinson. I mean, Millie's, to be more recent. You know, he went there for a little bit before he started getting kicked out. Yeah, man, it was just a great experience. I got kicked out in high school, junior year.
Okay.
So freshman and sophomore year, I actually did pretty well as far as grades and everything. I managed to get on the honor roll a few times.
Yep.
And I'm sure if I had dedicated myself completely, I probably would have made it every semester, but I was distracted by other things.
Of course.
And I got kicked out junior year. Pretty much how it happens is first day of school, I get approached over some stuff that happened over the summertime with some kids from the port. And they surround me about 30 deep talking about go around the corner, this, and that. And at this time, I had stayed after school for a little bit just to catch up with a bunch of people. And so I look around to see who's around for my boys, and it's nobody. You know, I was
30 on one. That's
it was like a chick that I knew, and the kid. You know, I'm like, oh man. What I was like, listen, man, if you guys are gonna do something, we're gonna do something right here. I'm not gonna go around the corner with this 30 more of y'all. Blah blah blah.
I'll take my chance.
And then so one of the kids, so the kid that actually was gonna challenged me to go around the corner to fight was like behind a couple kids. So what had happened was in the summertime, we were on the mayor's program, which was like a youth program where you work and you get paid from the city. And
Menino's the mayor at the time, correct?
Well, it's Cambridge, so I think it might have been Galluccio. We got different it might have been Galluccio at the time. Shout out to Galluccio, man. He actually got locked up for a little bit for some drinking and driving stuff. But I mean, it's stuff you could look up. But over the summer, my boy was just dribbling the basketball, and one kid was like, "Oh, you don't got no dribble," and he was like, "You don't got no deodorant," and then they just started a big argument. And maybe the next week I seen a kid down the park, a couple of them playing basketball, and I just kept and went to the other park down the street where my boys was at, and I told them, "Hey, these dudes are over there," and we pretty much chased them away. And so that was over the summer. So first day of school, that's what happened. They surround me. I'm like, whatever you guys can do, you have to do it right here. And then the kid to the right kind of like pushed me like, let's get this motherfucker. And I was like, all right, that's the one. And it was cool because he was like right here and I'm a righty. So it was like lined up perfectly. And next thing I know, I hit him. I'm on top of him. I'm thinking I'm going to get pummeled by like 30 dudes. I might have caught like a kick or two to the back that I didn't really feel. And that was my first day. And then a week or two later, I go into school. So the night before, we had it with some coast, like East Cambridge. They didn't really like us that much. You know what I mean? We
territorial.
We got a reputation for being racist. A couple bad apples might be behind that, but everybody wasn't like that. You know what I mean? It's just.
I think Boston, Cambridge, right there. I consider Cambridge Boston anyway.
It's just the way it was. Most of the kids I hung out with white kids, and then the kids from the port and the coast were mostly black. We fought kids from Somerville too who were white. You know what I mean? That's territorial.
I feel like, and I hate politics because I got enough in my head that to fucking think about that shit, but you can see why people get so crazy with it. But I feel like the people that fucking say that shit, I'll put that out there as far as like racism and stuff. They're the people that are forcing shit or making, busing and all that stuff where it's like, bro, and they're not affected by it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the fucking truth, you know? Yeah. And you're going to sit back and say, like, don't fucking tell me what I am. You know what I mean? Yeah. Unless you're living living how we're living, you know?
Absolutely.
And,
well, that's why I think it's kind of funny, right? It's like, you go down Newbury Street in Boston, right? Which, if you're not familiar with Newbury Street, it's a rich area. You know what I mean? A lot of rich businesses and stuff like that, and a lot of yuppies, as they like to say.
You see a lot of amazing cars down there.
You
see some dope cars, some Lambos and shit like that. But it's areas like that. You see a lot of the LGBTQ pride flags, the Black Lives Matter flags, and you know, I feel like you don't necessarily see it as much in the hood where it's, you know, people truly are affected. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You know what's crazy?
That's
is
interesting to me.
think that, you know, you saying that made me think that we go down to Newberry Street, you know, from the neighborhood, which, you know, we jump on the train and whatnot in the summertime, and like that would be a day out, like, you know, and or even Faneuil Hall, you know, but then we'd venture out a little further, and like Newberry Street was like, you know, you do that on a Sunday afternoon or something, because it was like, you know, it was different, right? And it was you felt like it was a world like that you hadn't seen, and it was something that it wasn't even about aspiring. It was just like, wow, look at this shit. But the one thing I didn't see, and I only speak myself, but I feel like collectively, like the kids that we went, you know, that I went with, we weren't. If they were down there, like that shit didn't stick out, you know. I was more like looking at like people that had things that I'm like, wow, like how do people get these things? How do people reach this level of, you know, maybe not, I probably wasn't articulating it like that in my head, I'm processing it, but you know, I know that I was kind of like, wow, you know, this is, you know, it was almost like an alien, you know, like you're on a different planet. But
shit's foreign to us.
I was working down there, and I forget what kind of car this dude was driving, one of them supercars, but the kid I was working with, he was like, man, what do you do to get this? Dude was just honest. He was like, came from the right nutsack, man. And a lot of people are born into the money, and that's the generational wealth, you know what I mean? But some people, they stop with nothing, and they're able to build empires, and that type of stuff is so inspirational to me. People like 50 Cent, you know what I mean? His mom got killed when he was young, shot so many times. You know what I mean? Like people like that
Devin said he produced Den of Thieves too.
Yeah,
he was in the movie. Wasn't he in the movie?
So
I mean,
50 Cent was in Den of Thieves 1. And
he got killed in the first one.
killed in the first movie.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. I haven't seen the second one yet. That's coming soon. But just came out in theaters. But I guess he died in the first movie. Second movie, he produces
He's got his hands in everything. He just, you know, the way he reinvented himself after the music thing, you don't see a lot of people do. You know
smart
what I mean?
dude, man.
There's a few people who do that. Snoop Dogg,
you know what his
Dre,
smartest move
LL
was?
Cool J.
If you know anyone paying attention to, you know, to the Diddy thing with Jay-Z and shit like that.
He's a funny bastard.
I think the smartest move that he made was, you know, and he didn't even realize what was going on, but this, you know, that's how his brain, the way it worked, like that, those street smarts go a long way, because he didn't go to those parties. He didn't go there, you know what I mean? And now you know, he's, you know, a lot of the time you'd hear shit about, you know, 50 or whatever, and they try to throw dirt on his name, and he's, you know, all this shit, right? But like, he's still standing, right? So that says a lot, you know? And if there was if they could have got him by now, they try to kill him, right? They try to tarnish his name, all that shit, right? And he's still here, and like, and he's doing big things, you know? The best part is I love when he exposes them, because I feel like, you know, and listen, this goes for anyone, you know what I mean? Myself included, but if something's not right or whatever, like, people should know, you know, it's not about going around like, but if it's factual or whatever, it's like, then let people know, like, bro, this person's no good or whatever the case is.
It's like nobody wants to offend the popular guys, you know what I mean? But 50 don't care, you know what I mean? The thing is, 50 knows probably he don't have dirt on him, so most people probably ain't willing to try to put out people because they're looking at their dirt.
Yeah, right.
You know, and 50's just kind of genius with all of that.
Another person that's real good at it too, and he's been making a buzz lately. I don't know if you're up with it, but Jim Jones and Cameron been going at it
going back and forth.
Man, and like, you know, Dipset's fucking
Mace.
You know, Mace. I was the biggest Mace fan back in the day. I had the North Carolina, the Baby Blue.
Yeah, Harlem World, great album, man.
Right?
That Harlem World and then DMX's first album were probably two of my first rap CDs. You know, I might have had a tape or two before, but I mean, I love those.
So DMX, that's a good segue right there. You know, we're talking about you know, recovery, like people, you know, spiritual gangster. You know, that's what I call him, and the mark that he left or whatnot. You know, I know a kid from my neighborhood or whatever that I grew up with. At one point was sponsoring him, you know, and you couldn't make that.
Shout out to Sausage.
Yeah, Sausage. Yeah, you can't make that shit up. And it's like, here you got a kid from, you know, talk about fucking Boston's racist. You got a kid from Charlestown sponsoring fucking DMX. Where's he from? Fucking the Bronx or Yonkers or something, or you know, something like that. And you know, one of the boroughs, but in here, you know, I heard nothing but good things. You know, he was just. he was a broken man. You know, clearly he had his demons and whatnot. But you know, through his music, that shit like
I think that's what made it relatable was the brokenness.
Yeah,
like, I relate to what this dude's saying. You know
absolutely,
what I mean?
man.
I feel like some of his best shit was like, at least for me, like when he like spits the spiritual stuff or talks about God and stuff like that, because it's like he's not trying to make you believe. It's like he believes that shit. You know what I mean? And he was fighting the fucking
because this world is getting more and more godless. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can see it with the actions of these people. You know, the guy on the subways pushing random people. People are getting lit on fire. Like, we need more God in this world, I think. You know what I mean? And I don't like to try to push anybody towards it, but just, you know, open your mind and think about it, man.
Was that something in your house growing up that was like, you know, embedded or even was like introduced to you, or is it something that maybe you learned along the way, you know, through your journey and whatnot? Or was it
so pretty much I got my first communion, and that was about the extent of it.
Yeah.
That was it. I didn't get confirmed or anything like that. You know, so I had to do classes when I was real young. Looking back, I seen the pic, I'm like real young. But yeah, I got my first communion, but that was about it. Really wasn't something that was that we did. We didn't go to church much or anything like that, unless it was for a funeral or something like that.
But I think it says to me, you know, it says so much about someone's character or like really their heart. You know, King Ace that we just had on, shout out to King Ace and whatnot. Like, he spoke, like, one of the things that I loved about that interview was he talked about the soul and like how we have, you know, the skins. Like, I think he mentioned
Call of Duty.
You know what I mean? I'm too old for that shit. But, and when he said it, it's like, you know, he's doing his thing and like, fuck, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I think that's brilliant. What, you know, he has this talent, he's exploiting it. Maybe that's the wrong word or whatever, but like he's putting it out there, and like, you know, we all deserve to eat, right? And he's doing exactly what I believe he's intended to do. But at the same time, you sit down and speak to him, and like there's no fraudulence, you know what I mean? And he sits there and he can have a conversation about things like that, and it's like, you know, it's so much deeper than like just like what you see on the outside or on a video or something, you know. And that's something I get from you, you know.
And that's what I think what's great about these podcasts, especially for like rappers and artists like that, is sometimes people want to see beyond the music and see the person. And sometimes, like, even now, I follow 50 Cent, but it's not, he could put out a new song, I probably won't listen to it. It's not his music that I follow, it's him as a person that I respect and follow. And I think that's what's great about having the chance for people to tell their story in an authentic way and stuff like that too, man. So I think
having you know, that's Devin had said it before, you know, about you know, having that voice and whatnot. You know, I know that I certainly, and I think I can speak for us, like, you know, for a long time, it's like, you know, shut up, you know what I mean? Like, what do you got to say, you know, or who wants to hear you? And like, no one ever said that to me, you know, out loud, you know, or at least that I can remember. But I told myself that, you know, a lot, I'm sure. And that's just not the case, you know. So to see, that's one thing that I got from you. I'm like, you know, when you talk about inspiration, motivation, and that's attractive, you know. And it's like when I saw that, it's like, okay, you know, and where your mindset was, and it was like, that shit to me, like that gets me, you know, going and whatnot, you know. It's, the gears get going, and it's like, you know, I love that shit, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's awesome too, man, because like, yo, I met you through Joe like a couple weeks ago, you know what I mean? Like coming in, we had some, you know, we talked a little bit beforehand, but we're just meeting, and it's like, you know, it's you know, how long you been doing your podcast for now?
Yeah, let's speak about the podcast.
Yeah, bounce back, baby.
Bounce back, baby. We lace up, Bobby bounces back.
Let's go,
sir.
baby. So I've been doing the Bounce Back podcast since late 2022, so a little over 2 years now. And,
damn, bro.
Wow. Yeah, a little over 2 years.
Wow.
Over 108 episodes now, and
wow.
And you just reached 10,000.
Yeah, man. I
think you're at 12 right now, 12.5 or some shit.
That's on IG.
Yeah,
IG is
you
like
guys
12.
got me looking at this shit. I'm like, this is too much for me.
Yo, every time, and Bobby showed me, yo, that's what I was getting at, right? Is you know, where you in 2022 right now, man? We're starting out and trying to work through little things, and you know, that's what I was getting at. Is I first met you, and like, you know,
so
we hit it off. And
so the way I look at it like this, right? If you're trying something and you're doing something that you've never done, it's almost like mathematically impossible to get worse, right? If you just keep doing something that you've never done, you can only get better. I mean, you got to be a real fool if you're gonna get worse. You know what I mean? Like, if I never did a podcast and then you do it 20 times. you should in theory be better.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
It's like math, not magic. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
The output is directly correlated with the input. And that's why I'm like real big on the work, man. Like the views are gonna be what the views are gonna be. It's only in your control to an extent. Like you can make the thumbnail, all that stuff, and the title, that all goes into it. So you create that, so you do have somewhat of a thing. But I mean, the views are gonna be what the views are gonna be.
Absolutely.
And it's really about like, what I can control is the work. I may not control that this video could get 10K, 1K, or whatever it may be, but I can control that maybe I do 8 episodes this month.
Yeah.
That's in my control. And that's what you really got to try to focus on, because I see people who do this and, oh, my views ain't where and it's like,
the expectations. You
can't stress that, bro.
Right.
That's really out of your control, because that's
Absolutely.
literally what other people are choosing to do. They're choosing to click the video or not. So you can't really stress about things that's not in your control.
Yeah.
That's what's
crazy.
that's what's intriguing to me.
That's what separates people, though, right? What do you think separated fucking Tom Brady from all the people that got picked before him?
Right.
He worked hard. You know what I mean?
I talk about that, the work ethic, bro.
Work
Something
ethic, bro.
that I'm still fucking. I don't know.
Joe doesn't like to work,
yeah.
in case you didn't know.
No, bro. Yeah, I don't know, man. Life's too short, bro. But like, man, it's like fuck.
Hey, don't get it twisted, Joe.
I didn't make the rules, but like, you know what I mean? I suffer the consequences, that's for sure. But I see Bobby, and it's like, that's what I see in you, is like that work ethic. Like, so if anything, it's like, if nothing else comes out of this, like, selfishly for myself, it's like, bro, I get to be around people that like motivate, inspire, and like you're teaching me, like, bro, this is what it takes, right? Like that work ethic. We've had a couple of people tell us since we started this, like, if we could give you one piece of advice, it'd be to like keep putting stuff out there. No, even when you don't want to do it, put it out there. You know what I mean? And think about like the bigger picture. Like, why'd you start this in the first place, and what are you trying to do? Ultimately, like, I never want to lose sight of that. Is that why we started? Is like, to help people. You know what I mean? To like let people know like that. That you matter, that you have a voice, like, and it's really not for you to fucking, you may think fucking otherwise, but like, just try your best, put your best foot forward, and like other people will kind of let you know who you are, and then then you can kind of, grow from there. I feel like.
And I think everybody goes through things, right? And when you're going through it, you probably, a lot of times you feel, well, I'll speak for me, is I feel like I'm the only one with problems, right? Like, I'm so self-absorbed and self-centered that I think I'm the only one with problems. But then when you see an episode and people talk about their problems, and a lot of times it's someone always has it worse, bro. You know what I mean? It puts things in perspective.
What's that saying when they say, you throw your problems into into the circle, and like you be quick to like take yours back.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, hit him with that gem real quick, Bobby. What was that you dropped the other day? Was it be consistent, be persistent?
Oh yeah. My main thing was like, because I shared the photo screenshots of my Facebook with like 9K, the Instagram with like 12K, and
I love that
and the
shit,
10K,
bro.
and it was just like, be persistent, be consistent, and double back if you missed it. Man.
Fire.
That's what
Mic
it's about,
drop.
man.
That's
I know,
fire.
right?
So
It's almost as
it came off the top of my head in the moment, which is
fire.
cool sometimes.
Yeah. Nah,
are you
it
into
is.
manifestation?
Yeah.
You believe in I
think
like the law of attraction, like that type of shit.
Because you got to make a decision at some point. You're not going to just stumble upon success or stumble upon your dreams. You have to decide it. And I think that's the main thing of manifesting. Like, I just honestly, I DM'd Joe Rogan, told him about my podcast, and told him I'm manifesting it now. And then when I get up there, I'm going to show you so he could look back and see it in his DMs. But I do believe in manifesting.
And Joe Rogan's that dude, bro. I can see him like.
You never know, man. It's a shot in the dark.
Yeah,
you know.
I think he's so. I think he's been so he's had so much success, and like that dude right there is like, he's his authentic self, and like he's like just trying to be the best version of himself, and he has his own opinions and stuff like that. And he'll sit there and debate with you and not be, but he's I think that's why people love him. You know what I mean? Because I don't know. I mean, I'd like to believe that with a lot of people, but I just feel like he's. That's where his success comes from. Is like people can relate to him and stuff, So that wouldn't
Just
surprise
look
me
at the
one
work
bit,
that
bro.
he puts in. What's he on episode 2,000? Like
Yeah,
thousands.
crazy.
You know what I'm saying?
Crazy.
I'm like, damn. I only really just knew about him doing a podcast. Like, I guess 10 years ago, I didn't even know what a podcast was.
Yeah,
bro. You know, never
word.
mind that I'd be doing one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just crazy, bro.
The platform. I think that's another huge thing that I was thinking about earlier. It's like to allow someone to have that, to build that platform, right? It's like that's such a cool thing, It's like, yeah, it may you may benefit from it or whatever, but like at the end of the day, like I said, like why start this, our producer Greg, shout out to Greg, he says that, he has experience with this stuff. And one thing he said to me that has been resonated with me is, it's about having fun, bro,
Yeah.
It's like,
I always
if
say that
it stops being fun, and that's something, that's how I
They
think it
say
works.
as soon as you stop having fun with it, I'll be done with it. You know what I mean? And it's like you got to keep coming up with ways to keep things fresh and new content, new guests, different topics. You know what I mean? And man, that's another thing. That's what I was getting at. Like when I first met you, and like I don't know, they say, like Joe says it all the time, real recognizes real, right? And like I feel like, it's good, man, to like take your chances on something you believe in and something that you're passionate about. And, a lot of times, like, I don't know if it's just with music or people with a platform. Like, I thought it was real cool. I reached out to 1090 Jake a couple weeks ago, and he hit me right back, threw me a follow and threw it on the gram. And like, it's like,
dope.
yeah. And like a lot of people, man, like, especially even for you, like it'd be easy to hate on people, or like people hate on millies, like, you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know what it is. If it's not just
that's sucker shit.
It's not just a Boston thing. It's a universal thing. But I don't know if I know it's you can't really care about what people think and what people have to say. But if you want to speak on
I just think a lot of people just have their own insecurities that they project outward. You know what I mean? The world.
That's a bad look too, bro.
The world is an external reflection of your internal feelings. You know what I'm saying? And if you feel bad about yourself, you know what I mean? Then miserable. The world's gonna come off as miserable, and everything that everybody else does is gonna seem miserable. And I don't know, man. So it's really about how you feel about yourself. Man. That's how I look at it. Because if you're not trying to add value and you're trying to bring another man down, it's just I feel like I'm the type of person where like I have so much work to do on myself. That if I take any of that time to talk about what another man is doing or trying to bring that man down, it's like I'm losing focus on myself, and that's really where I try to keep the focus is on myself. And anybody who comes from where we come from, like you had said, 1090 Jake, he been locked. These are all inspirations to me. You know what I mean?
100%, bro.
Put in the work. It just shows you that there's other outlets to go. You know what I mean? And with this technology thing, I just think my whole philosophy kind of is like, it's never too late to do great. Reinvent yourself. You got to change with the times. You know what I mean? And whatever your passion is and something that you love to do that you would be doing anyway with your free time, record it and make it as content. Especially if it's something that you love to do and it's going to do anyway. Just record it. You know what I mean? And then it's music, not a job.
Talk about that, that God-given talent.
Yeah, I mean, you can stream video games. People make it rich streaming video games. You love to play video games?
Yeah.
Get a little setup.
Do what makes you happy. Do it.
Do it.
Then, like you said, that's really like, not to get too philosophical, but like life, like that's, living, right? You're living, you're doing like, you put in the work and stuff like that, but at the same time, it's meant to be, it's supposed to be enjoyed. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of, like you said, suffering out there. And like, we all know, like they say, pain's inevitable. Pain's going to happen. Pain's inevitable, but suffering's optional, And, the platform that you have with the Bounce Back podcast in allowing guys to come home, from let's say, incarceration or different avenues, like where a lot of the time, like, society in general, where we think that maybe of ourselves or people when they're in that position, and like maybe rightfully so, you know what I mean? Maybe we have to feel in order to grow. At least, that's been my experience, and then I can be grateful for it because I'm like, damn, okay, like, but like the platform that you allow these guys to have, and then to see it trend and like take off, where it's like, dude, there's a lot of stories out there that not only like that need to be heard, and for people to think that that they're failures or that they that they're no good or whatnot. That's just not the case, right? Like I said, if that's the truth, like, put it out there, bro. Let the universe decide. Let the people decide. You know what I mean? And like, that's one thing with us that we can, at least for myself, where it's like, okay, let me take a chance here, right? And not live in fear, not be consumed by it, and not, and even through my actions, or where other people may criticize or whatnot. I love the way that you respond to people with the comments and shit. I love it because like that teaches me something. People will put something negative out there, and you'll be like, "Thank you for your opinion." You know what I mean? I'm like, I need to learn this shit, and grow like that, because what can people do? What can they say when you hit them with that, bro? Yeah, they're like, they tuck their head. They're almost like, "Fuck," like that's a wonderful thing. That's a beautiful thing, like Devin says.
Yeah. So what was back to, so we get off topic. It happens a lot.
That's my fault. By the way.
No, you're good. So you got in the fight junior year.
Okay, yeah.
Ringe and Latin, right?
Yep.
We used to play them in basketball.
We always had a great back. I think when I was a freshman, we went back to back or something like that.
I played against Ja'Kai Doughton. You ever heard of him?
They just went back to back.
Okay, Ja'Kai Doughton.
Stay tuned for B. Luke and fucking and Devin are gonna be playing fucking Cameron and Jim Jones soon, right? We're gonna set that up, right? Boston, New York, right?
Yeah.
That's so Ja'Kai. I don't know.
Ja'Kai was good, man.
Lance Doughton was like he's the head coach.
Okay.
He's been the head coach since I was there. He was my homeroom teacher. They're a big family in Cambridge. Shout out to all the Doughtons. For sure. But so I got so I get kicked out on that fight. So a week or two later, we had some issues with the Coast kids, right? And some things happened on like where we used to hang out. And my whole philosophy was like, I'm gonna go in the next morning because they outnumber us. I'm gonna go in early so I could catch the first one to come in. And that's pretty much what, I was outnumbered, right?
Yeah.
So I just was like, I'm going to get there early, and then whatever one I see, so two of them come up, and then I just started swinging. And that was about the end of it for junior year. I got kicked out. I went to ABCD in downtown Boston.
Yep.
I remember that.
Yeah, right there. Which was quite the experience, man. But great kids coming to school with
Was
guns
that on
also.
Temple Street?
Right. It was right on Tremont, right across the street from
Did they have like a different curriculum? They only went from
Commons.
A to D instead of A to Z.
Yeah, A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
But I ended up getting kicked out of there too for a fight. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And then I ended up finishing the year at another alternative school. See, my thing is I always went and I always did the work, so they weren't really trying to be like kick me out for good. They're just trying to find somewhere else to put me.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. And
They had
then,
to find a home for B. Luke, baby.
yeah. And then I think over the summer, I caught a case as an adult. I had to do some DYS time. I come back senior year. They're like, you can't come here. You have open adult cases. They send me back to the other alternative school, Challenge Prep, which I finished junior year at. They sent me back there to finish my senior year. I graduated on stage, though, which was a cool moment, you know what I mean? And I went to the prom. And then I got arrested at the prom. I had warrants, right? Bailed out, went back. I'd like to say that I was prom king to make it really quite the story, but that wasn't what it was. But yeah, bailed out, went back. My friends were like, where the hell Bobby going? Someone had to tell him, like, I saw the cops taking them out, all that. And after high school, I really had no plans. You know what I mean? I was hustling.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you were living in the moment without living. You know, you were surviving. You know, I gotta ask, like, you know, the growing up, you know, and I hear it in your story and whatnot, you know, and then I see you and it's like I can't, you know, I wouldn't want to anyway, like try to like picture that or whatnot, but you know, the anger, there must have been they were certainly derived from somewhere where, like, you know, obviously, you know, someone you were taught to defend yourself and to, like, you know, to stick up for yourself, and you're certainly not a troublemaker, you know, but there was clearly some underlying issues as far as like anger, you know, and I see that, you know, that's something that I can relate to.
Even in elementary school, I was doing crazy stuff, getting into fights. I think 6th grade, I stabbed a kid with a pair of scissors. You know what I mean? Over your mama jokes, we fought. I just so happened to be a pair of scissors. It was art class or something. You know what I mean? And I got kicked out in the next year. I had to go 7th grade to Dearborn Academy. But yeah, there was a lot of misplaced anger, I'm sure. Where it came from, probably like my dad was in prison till I was 10, so I didn't have like that father figure around. I guess I had my little brother JoJo. I had him, and then
shout out to JoJo.
Yeah, free JoJo.
Free JoJo, baby.
Free JoJo.
But then when I was 11, my brother Anthony was born, and I think that's where my mother's focus more was to the infant, where me and my brother were pretty much free to do whatever we wanted, you know, as long as we came home, you know what I mean, to come home, eat, shower, all that, and then we were gone.
And your mom was doing it solo.
Yeah, because his father wasn't around at all. You know what I mean? If anything, one of her boyfriends was probably the closest thing that he had to a father.
I say all the time, I got 2 older sisters, but like when my mother held down the fort, you know, and there's no question as far as like women and men, like, you know, it's hands down. Yeah. They're the boss. Like, they run the show. You know, nothing runs without them. And like, they're certainly braver, you know, more courageous. Yeah. They got bigger balls than like any dude I know. That's
my mom was 16 when she got pregnant. You know what I mean? And you don't realize that when you're 3 or 4 how young your mom is. You know what I mean? Until I get a little older and look back, and I'm like, damn. At my age, she had a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 5-year-old. Like, God bless her. You know what I mean? Yeah. And she did what she had to do, but she encountered her struggles too, and eventually got wrapped up in addiction. And then we're moving different places and stuff like that. So. but she never had us go without. I'll tell you that much. You know what I mean? She provided. I remember even my cousin Ronnie he told me that he asked his dad.
Ronnie Blue Eyes, is that the one?
No, my cousin Ronnie Lucas, but that's my boy. My cousin Ronnie Lucas. He grew up in Brockton. You know what I mean? And he'd come back and forth to Cambridge, but he had asked his father why do Bobby and JoJo get so much for Christmas? You know, and his father was like, because Robin steals. Like, that's just what she did. She could, she made sure her kids had it, man. I remember one time, it's many moons ago anyway, so, she's not going to get in trouble. We go to Stock Market and she's coming out with an air conditioner, like, pop the trunk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just the type.
Stock Market got plenty of fucking old.
Yeah, I don't even think they have air conditioners anymore.
They got loss prevention.
Yeah, theft protection.
Yeah,
insurance.
Let them know, Jeff. Let them know, bro.
But always food on the table, clothes on our back, and she never really, neglected us like that. But then there was a time too, I was catching cases, getting kicked off the lease as a teenager, and now she's only got a certain amount of bedrooms, and she was sleeping on the couch so her kids can all have a bedroom. You know what I mean? That's the type of mom she was. So
I love the moms. Like, I'm a mama's boy, and they to hear I even to you say that, and I hear dudes like the big, I don't care on the exterior, whatever, this and that. We can all sometimes we need to put on that jacket or whatever, and but to hear a guy speak about their mom, you know what I mean, and then like humble themselves and like just to know, like, at the end of the day, like what she taught you and like what's in you and what stayed with you is that positive shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's easy to look at like, well, this, that, or Christmas or whatever the case is, right? We're quick to like do that shit, but like to know like you are who you are. Like we get the bad's easy to look at, but like the good stuff, like that shit is like, I think it should be more. We should be more grateful for it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it shows in what you do. So I think that's all they want for us at the end of the day.
Yeah. Shout out to all the single mothers in general. That they're the best, man. They're the real MVPs. For
absolutely.
Real.
I love my mother. I always say if we could redraft moms, she would be my number one pick still. You know what I mean? Number one draft.
And they
pick.
need to hear that shit too. You know what I mean? They really do. Sometimes we think they're superwoman.
Yeah. Especially
maybe
when
not
you're
literally,
a kid,
but
looking back, it's easy to see.
bro.
But when you're in it as a kid, you don't know what they're doing and what they're sacrificing for you, and that's why kids sometimes can be ungrateful and spoiled.
Right,
this is what it is,
100%.
Yeah,
that's just what that is.
So you said after high school, right? You didn't really have any plans.
No,
I got your diploma, right?
I got my diploma. Yeah, I was just hustling, bro, and then that's when the whole going to jail, like adult jail, started. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I graduated high school in 2003. My first time in adult jail was 2005. But I already had like a adult case from when I was 17. At the time, they were charging 17-year-olds as adults, and I was already on probation.
Yeah.
And then I caught a attempted murder case in 2005, and that was my first time in adult jail. I was in Cambridge jail. First day, second day, I see a dude from my neighborhood who was a known snitch. I never seen paperwork. You know how just people know around the neighborhood.
Yeah, right,
but
right.
I know enough about jail and to not call someone a snitch without paperwork.
100%, bro. Absolutely.
But he was just some dude I used to sell to, and one time
you know who you are.
Yeah, what he knows. He ran into my dad in a bar once and said, "Your son beat me up in jail and stuff." And that's what it was.
You only get beat up for the most part.
They put me in the dorm.
Yeah.
I didn't
Two
like the whole
reasons.
dorm feeling. And that's what it was. He was brushing his teeth, and I suckered him, and that's pretty much what it was. I wailed on him. He hardly even hit back, but then they
He was brushing his whiskers.
They shipped me to Plymouth after that, man. And,
okay, so from Cambridge to Plymouth.
Yeah, the limo to Plymouth. They were doing it every week.
Limo to Plymouth.
Because of overpopulation, you know what I mean? They were sending people every week to Plymouth, and I pretty much sat there, and then the victim never showed up, and it eventually got dismissed.
Nice.
So,
that was your introduction, huh?
To the adult system, yep. And, that's what it was. And I had a good enough PO who didn't violate me. I told you I was already in probation because he saw that this case didn't even get indicted. It didn't get past, you know what I mean, the probable cause hearing, and so many extensions. They got no further continuances, and that's what it was. And I had two co-defendants at the time, my little brother and my boy, and as soon as I got caught, they were on the run in Florida, and then they got caught, and then they're in Cambridge together. I'm in Plymouth. They're going to court. They're together. I'm like, damn, I'm way out here. I wish I was at least with them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right.
Middlesex is our county.
Yeah.
We know so many people, and but I was like, yo, just to get out of there, willing to plead. I was like, don't plead out, bro. That's, you know what I mean? Just
it's funny. Yeah.
like,
That's why I laugh when dudes
what's
like,
the fear of the unknown? Like,
Yeah.
let me just know. I'm like I'm attempting murder. You know, people telling you all sorts of things. I'm like, I just want to know.
people, yeah, bro, especially when the worst one, people
But it's
like
designed like
people
that.
like, bro, just take the time. Like, I'm not taking. I'm like, bro, shut the fuck up, right? Like, like, you know what I mean? No, you do anything to stay out aside from fucking not being accountable for your actions and like putting someone else in harm's way.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, you give me, you know, it's like within reason, obviously. But like, yeah, you're gonna. All right, I get 2 years probation, or I'm gonna do a month, and like, nah, bro, I'll take my chances with the 2 years. You know what I'm saying? It's too good out here, and like, it's not that shit is a waste of time, man.
Yeah, it's a young man's sport. Unfortunately, I don't got the years in me no more to be sacrificing like
that's
that.
a
You
good
know,
thing.
I think I needed it when I did go in. You know what I mean? And I think everything happens for a reason.
100%.
You know, that's why I was meant to do that little bit of time. You know,
You learn from your lesson.
I had
bounce
3-year
back.
sentence and a year for probation. I did 40 months. That was the longest I did. But you know, when you go upstate, people are just getting life. They're getting smokers. So I was a short time.
Which I still to this day can't fathom that. And I've been with guys that are never coming home, and I don't think it's humanly. I don't think a person's supposed to be able to wrap their head around that. You know, thank God.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I can accept a lot and settle for less, but you know that they're kind of. You know, I'm like the red flag goes up. I'm like, all right, that's not not how I want to fucking go out. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to go out like that, bro.
Definitely not.
Not at all, man.
Definitely not. People,
This side's way better.
all of us, bro.
Yeah,
we got more potential than that. You know
Well,
what I
and
mean?
then it's not just about us neither when we go in. We drag our families through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you got kids, your mom, you know, we think we're big shots out here trying to hustle and make money, and next thing you know, I'm a bill. My mother, who's on Section 8, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Put money on your
has
books.
to, bro, my celly, I would get money orders like whatever, $17.50, right? My celly's like, what? Because they would write it right on the envelope. I'm like, yo, my mom probably literally had only $20 and she had to pay for the stamp in the envelope, you know, and then $1 for the money order. That's what, you know what I
real
mean?
shit, bro.
Yeah,
real
but-
shit.
But it's not man shit. You know what I mean?
Not
you're
at
not
all,
a man
bro.
if you got your mom
Not at all.
paying for you
Yeah.
to eat. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? And it's
that's some fool shit. There's nothing cool about it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Like when you're not growing up too, we don't think about our loved ones and the people we hurt the most. But it's like, you can't. Anyone listening, man, you can't make up for lost time. You know
No.
what I mean?
Yeah,
And, you
not
can
at
just,
all.
I've tried in the past, even in going away, I'm just, feeling like I was, that I missed out or that I was owed something. And, I think that, and then I hear other people's stories, you know what I mean? Or even, you guys talking about your dads and stuff like that. And, it's that victim mentality or like me, feeling sorry for myself without even, because that's not my first thought, dude. It's like, I'm not trying to, like, I don't think I'm feeling sorry for myself.
Right.
So then in turn, right, something comes out of me, like that ego kicks in, like, and that character comes out that I don't even know I'm playing because I got to put on this, I got to try to believe it myself, and now it's an internal battle, right? Like the conflict, right? Mm-hmm. And, angels and demons type shit. And nothing good's ever come out of it, like you even said about the anger or whatnot. Like, that's something I'd say to my son, like, it's like, bro, listen, I get it. We can talk. We can, something I never learned that I'm trying to, that I try to work on now is like communication, right? That never was the case, right? Yeah. It wasn't at home. Like, it was just like, and to this day, it's like, it's better to learn, late than never. But it's something like, I tell him, like, yeah, you can walk around with a chip on your shoulder. You can be mad at the world, but like, no one gives a fuck. And I don't mean that in a negative way or like condescending. It's like, everyone has their own stuff going on, and if you want to walk around with a chip on your shoulder, two things are going to happen, right? And you're going to run into someone that's angrier than you, right? That maybe has more of a reason to justify, whatever the case is. Like,
going to humble you.
And so you're either going to learn, I'd rather personally, like, I would have liked to learn, and I think I did it for the most part, and I think we can all say that, where I never really, I kind of, when the consequences got that great, it kind of humbled me, and maybe I needed that, but, other people take it to another level where it's like, I don't know. Maybe they're hurting that much. I don't really know why, but
Absolutely.
put themselves in that type of position or whatnot. And
Joe mentioned anger, man, and I know from watching your podcast, obviously every human being deals with anger. People like us obviously probably make bad decisions based off our emotions. You know what I mean? End up costing us. But. If you, like I said, I've watched some of your podcasts. I know mental health is a part of your story. When did you start recognizing that, dealing with that.
It's good, Deb. Good.
I-
Glad you brought that up.
I mean, man, I don't know. I think since way back, I would just get in these, funks, depression. I think a big part of it was not really having a purpose. You know what I mean? Not really knowing
What you wanted
what
to
my
do.
purpose was in life, where to go. I always got to be working towards something. If I'm not, I feel stagnant. And even water, like water is life, but even water when it's stagnant gets moldy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I just got to be moving. But yeah, I just started dealing with mental health the wrong way sometimes. I got into drinking real big when I had to
we
stop-
self-diagnose,
Yeah,
which a lot of people do, right?
I had to stop smoking weed it was all, something to, like you said, you didn't want to feel outside of yourself. I smoked weed every day and I had to stop smoking weed and it turned me into an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have to, I chose to,
Right.
I made the decision.
Everyone's looking for that magic fucking recipe.
But that just made everything worse
the
because
potion.
worst case scenario with too much alcohol compared to worst case scenario with too much weed is, it's a big difference, at least for me. You know what I mean? I'll probably end up in a jail cell. I have, I woke up not knowing, what did I do? Did I kill somebody? Like literally, did I kill
That's scary
somebody,
shit,
man?
bro.
You know what I
That's
mean? I
scary.
didn't know. I went in front of the judge with no shirt. They arrested me with no shirt. I'm like, y'all don't have a shirt that somebody left here or something like that. And yeah, man, it's something I got to work on. Talking about it helps. The podcast helps.
100%.
Hearing other people's
Absolutely,
story.
bro.
But the main thing I realized about myself is if I'm working and I'm working out, I think everything else is going to be all right. Because I had to look back at what got me through prison. I would call prison probably the worst part of my life, right? We make the most of it while we're in there, but that's probably the lowest I've been. And what really got me through that is the working out. So that's something that I took
we
with
talked
me
about
to this.
the exercise.
Yeah, it
I
just
say all the
elevates
time,
it,
man. Yeah.
the energy, your frequency, all of that. It's just
Dopamine, all that shit, bro.
That's
sure.
why I love seeing.
And it's
I
the way
love
to
seeing
cha-
the lives or the videos when you're running and shit like that.
But it's channeling that anger that we have because that energy is there, bro.
Towards
it's
something
there.
positive.
So what are you gonna do with it? Because they say energy can't be created nor destroyed, right? So it's there anyway. What are you gonna do with it?
Got to
Yeah.
go somewhere.
Try to channel it into something positive. It's not always easy, and it takes a lot of self-reflection to really realize what your flaws are, and it's a tough conversation to have with yourself. You know what I mean? And
Bro, but that shit.
it's
That's
hard,
that's where it's at. That's what it's all about, and that's something that and I'm glad that I have the balls. Like I'm glad that I've suffered enough, and that it got me. Like I've suffered enough where I'm like, you know what, like. Now when I start feeling good, I learn. It's like I want to share that with people, bro.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, I know about we know about the hurt. Let's talk about like the growth. Let's talk about the hope. You know what I mean? Because
Absolutely. And I love that you guys shared that I inspired you too, because it's one thing to be inspired by somebody, but most people, they'll just keep that to themselves. They won't actually, because that makes me feel great and wonderful about what I'm doing. I'm like,
Yeah.
right, this is like really
and that's
what
not how
I'm
we
doing
grew
it
up.
for.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe we should have, we should have been telling each other that for a long
sure.
time. But I think that it's like that we've warranted. It's warranted. You know what I mean? Like you hear those things when you're supposed to hear them. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And you believe them when you know that they're true.
Right.
As opposed to like. Telling each other something on the corner and like just basically leading each other down fucking, down the
Following each
wrong
other
path.
into the fire,
Yeah, into
bro.
the fire, and thinking that's loyalty and that's brave, and that's like makes you solid and stand up. It's like, you said it perfect. Like, show up for life. You know what I mean? My famous saying was, you back me into a corner or like, I'm feeling emotional. Like, maybe I might have hurt you, unintentionally, whatnot. And my saying in the past was like, I'll kill for you, I'll die for you, right? And all that was, the truth being told, was like, I look back in hindsight and it was like, that's enough. Like, I can't do this no more. You accept that, and like, what do you like? That should be good enough. And I remember one time someone said to me, what is that? Why don't you try living for, why don't you live for me? And I'm like, damn,
Right.
that shit hit,
And sometimes that's what we need. Sometimes you can't see things until somebody says it, and then it opens your mind. And that's the whole thing too, is being open-minded to new things. You know what I mean? New things, new experiences. Try new things, because the old things obviously weren't working. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And meet new people and just build those bonds, build those relationships, the positive ones, and that's real big on me is the positivity, because like you said, like the negative attitude. There's no way like a positive result could come from a negative attitude. And I look at it even mathematically, right? You could times any number, bro. You could be a positive 1 million. You times that by just a negative 1 and that turns that number into a negative 1 million. So that's why you have to stay away from negative stuff, because no matter how positive you are, positive 5 billion, you times it by just a negative 1, and now it's a negative. So
and to build your self-esteem enough to the point where like you're okay with setting those boundaries and being like, you know, not thinking like, you know what, you know, love is like, you know, jumping in a situation. Love is like going down with someone that's like going down, you know, taking themselves down. It's like
most times that love's not reciprocated too. A lot of times, you know what I mean. That's just a one-way street. You know what I mean.
That's what's tough, man. You know.
But what I say, like, you still just got to be yourself. Don't change because the way, you know, people don't return the same energy, because now what, you're gonna give them bad energy, and now you just got manipulated into changing who you are. Stay positive. That's what makes you better than, not better than, but it. You know, that's what makes you who you are.
Yeah, but the best version of yourself.
You know what I mean? And that's what we got to work on every
point.
day, is becoming the best version of ourselves, because then we could really be that for the people who need us to be that.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
We could,
that's where it's at right there, bro.
For sure.
Let me do what I got to do so I can, even if that's all the incentive you need, like be grateful and blessed that like you have people that you care about enough, right? You know, God put the, you know, your higher power, like they're in your life.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, it's really irrelevant. You can feel however you want. You can wake up on the wrong side of the bed, or you can fucking, you know, be miserable or negative. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's like if you have, you know, if you have any dignity or like, then, you know, do it for the people that you care about. You know what I mean? And then in turn, you know, little by slow, you'll start to be like, all right, well, this is
even just look at that. Like, what is the best version? It's just cool for me to look at like what the best version of myself would look like. Yeah. And it's a lot of cutting a lot of things out, right? Like I would say the best version of myself wouldn't be smoking vapes, you know, probably wouldn't even be smoking weed, which I do. It would be eating better, right?
Yeah.
But if you become the best version of yourself, you'll be
almost scary in a way. You know,
like I feel like you'd be close to like a superhero, you know what I mean? Everybody has something in
I'll
them.
say that with smoking. I'll be like, bro, listen, I need, you know, I can be doing everything that, you know, by the book, or, you know, at least like it's, you know, where, you know, no one's like saying, you know, it's not on me, like the heat's not on me, and I'll be smoking a butt. I'll be like, I need one vice, you know, I'll still like hold on to that, like, come on, don't take all of it, you know what I mean?
Yep. But we trick ourselves into believing that that's what we need, you know? You really don't. And the best version of yourself is going to be a great father. It's going to be a great friend. You're going to be a great son. You're going to probably be jacked, right? You're going to probably have an ill podcast, because the best version of yourself is putting in the work and doing it. You know what I mean? And actually learning the best version of yourself. I don't know. It's just cool for me to imagine, like, damn, I could really do that. Because I think sometimes too, like, what if at the end of all of this, right, you go in front of God and you meet who you could have been, and you're like, you know what I mean? And it's just, it's a scary thing to think about.
Crazy.
Like, wow, like, damn. And the best version of you tells you, like, yeah, man, this is what I did. I started this great podcast, and I ended up getting 1 million followers, and I married this beautiful woman, and I have this great family.
The
you know what I
potential,
mean?
the sky's the limit, bro.
You know, and I'm like, damn, only if I just believed in myself a little more. If only I didn't quit that time where I messed up on the audio, or only if, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so I just don't want to end this with anything left in the tank. You know what I mean? I want to put it all on the table while I'm here for this life.
Bro, that right there, the belief, I think that's a mic drop right there with, like, I say it all the time, man, you know, and, you know, believe in you. You know what I mean?
And that comes with work, though. The confidence comes with the work you put in. When you say the gym, if you're putting in work every day and then you go under that bar, you're gonna be more confident than someone who's going under 225 who ain't been doing it, even if they might have been able to get it at one point. And it's really just
like
about
you said, you know,
putting in the work will build the confidence. You know, because like you stand on it. You know, I feel like that's the difference between confidence and arrogance. Arrogance is confidence when they have no reason to really be confident. They didn't put in the work. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you put in the work, I feel like that's where true confidence comes from.
100%.
And that's on yourself. That's on whatever you're doing. Put in the work at work, self-work, whatever it may be. You know? That's how
they talk about fear of success and those things, and it's hard to wrap your head around. But like I do, as I keep trying my best, you know, and you know, being able to put my head, you know, on the pillow at night and like, and actually be able to sleep, and knowing that, like, bro, this is the best I got. I mean,
I go back to 50 Cent, like he rapped in one of his songs. It's like, when I die, let my tombstone read, I tried. You know what I mean? And everything I did from the start was from my heart, whatever it may be. But that's what I want people to remember like, you know.
What do you got, Jeff? You got anything else, bro?
I was just gonna say, man, like, you know, it's been great having you, dude.
I appreciate it.
You know, I like what you talked about, man, about just leaving it all on the table, right? And it's like, you know, we talked about bettering ourselves, and, you know, I feel like it all starts with us, and then the people you surround yourself with too, right, man? If you,
Super
your net worth is your network, and like what if you strip someone, right? They could have, they could have the great job, the nice car, and all that stuff, and like they could be shitbags, or they could be great people. Who knows, right? But it's like I don't know, man. It's like if you strip someone of all of that, it's like how was that person? How did they treat their family? How did they treat people at the coffee shop?
At the end of the day,
did they show up for their friends?
I'm
You know what I mean?
big
The best abilities availability. You know what I mean? And that's the way I look at it. Is like showing up for my children and putting positive things out there, man. And like you said, it starts with baby steps, man. But as you practice and get better, it's like you're not gonna get worse. You know what I mean? You have some momentum and build off that shit. And it's been great having you, man.
Absolutely,
Thanks
brother.
for
B.
having
Luke,
me.
man. You guys check out the Bounce Back podcast. Dev, you know what time it is, right? We're gonna have B. Luke
Sign the thing.
sign the
Should
logo.
we have him sign both, Joe? What should we do? We got a new
Beats, bro.
logo.
My John Hancock.
100%, bro. Absolutely, bro.
Yeah.
You can even forge
It's
one,
fitting
bro.
being in Quincy, right?
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
The Hancock.
Yep.
Oh no, that's Quincy. That's John Adams.
Yeah. No, I guess
they're all from out here,
I think
pretty much.
John Adams III was like conceived in this.
Well, even
building.
Benjamin Franklin is known for being like a Philly guy, but he was like under his brother's shadow out here in Boston.
Bro, this
before
is
he
some
ever moved to
exclusive
Philly.
shit that you're
No.
hearing right
Exclusive
now.
content.
History,
Y'all read
bro.
books.
Behind the scenes,
Right?
yeah.
Don't get it twisted, bro. We're not just fucking street guys.
We're intelligent. B. Luke.
Boom.
Not that I think
that.
whatever. Where can they find yours at too, Bobby? If you want to throw
Yeah, B. Luke,
bounce
let
So,
them know,
yeah.
bro.
podcast.
You can find me on Instagram at B_Luke_617, Facebook Bobby Lucas, and on YouTube at B-Luke_617, or you could just type in the Bounce Back podcast and it should pop right up, man. And appreciate it.
We
Yeah, give me
appreciate
a
you,
follow,
brother.
man.
I love
Thank
you, man.
I had a blast, and you know what it is? Before we go to, even just reminded me of that other night that we had with Mark and all them. Like, I feel like these are memories that are gonna be with me forever. You know what I'm saying? And I love creating these memories and these experiences. And
Yeah,
it's good to
bro.
get up and kick it like that, and it not be like a funeral. So how sometimes you don't catch up with people until someone dies or something. And yeah, man, I just love it. I'm having a blast with it, and I love creating these memories and sharing these new experiences with you guys, bro.
Yeah, we love
Means
doing
a
it
lot,
with you,
man.
brother. Thank you, my
Awesome,
friend.
yeah.
Any last words, Z?
I think we're good.
Yeah?
I think we got the message, boys.
All right. So you guys tune in, and thank you for like, subscribe, all that shit. Thank you for believing us, supporting us, and whatnot. We lace up, I'll lay down. So peace out.
Peace.
I'd like to get it over to
Inspirational.